Welcome back to my channel. Glad you could join me. As the title states, I have to say goodbye to my D90. Is it broken? No. Did it fall off a waterfall? No. Not like my D750. It's still here. But in a few days' time, I have to say goodbye to it. So why have I got to say goodbye to it? The person I bought from was a friend of a friend, and they were going to put the money that they got from the D90 into a new Z50. With everything that's been going on with this pandemic in Australia and around the world, the couple are expecting another child. Their hours have also been reduced at their work, and they found that the money that they were going to put towards the Z50, now they have to put towards their family. About a week ago, he rang me up and he said, listen, I know you really like the D90 and all that, but is there any chance that I could buy the D90 back off you so that we could use it just to take snaps of our kids and all that when they're growing up? I didn't blink for 1 minute. I said, sure, not a problem at all. I've been in a situation where money's been tight and I haven't been able to follow through on plans that I wanted. So he's coming around in a couple of days' time and I'm going to give him the D90 back. Am I sad to see it go? Of course I am. It's been great having two cameras. Now, am I going to buy another D90? Maybe not. I loved using it, but I think I might put that money towards either a D7100 or just keep saving up for a Z50. Because if I get the Z50, then my daughter will have much more fun using it. It's such a light camera. But it's around $1,200, so there's a big difference between $400 odd and $1,200 odd, and I was after just a budget camera. But I just want to highlight one point really between the D90 and the D500. Now I know they're chalk and cheese. One is just a prosumer, one is a pro body. But the dynamic range on the D500 is very similar to the D7500. Some people mightn't agree with it, but I've owned the D7500 and I found that the dynamic range between these two cameras is very close. It's like splitting hairs. Why did I get the D500 in the first place was for the better AF and the faster frame rate. They're the two main reasons that I went for the D500 and sold my D7500. If I wasn't after a high frame rate and a much quicker autofocusing system that the D500 has, I would have been very content with my D7500. So the big differences in these cameras is one is a 12 megapixel camera, one is 20. We're really jumping up, and where you really see the differences in these cameras between a 12 megapixel, a 20, a 24 or 36 megapixel camera is when you crop into an image, because this is where the 12 megapixel camera lacks compared to, let's say, the 20 megapixel camera. So to give you an idea of what I mean by when you crop into an image between a 12 megapixel camera and a 20 megapixel camera, I took a couple of photos in my office this morning with the D90 and the D500. Now both of these cameras were set up identically. White balance was set to fluoro. ISO was set to 200. I set the ISO to 200 because the D90, the minimum ISO you can go to is 200. The aperture was f11. The shutter speed was 5 seconds. So everything was exactly the same. The focal length was the same as well, around 40 mils. Now I've downloaded just these images onto my phone to show you the differences. I shot these images in JPEG format because I just want to show you what they look like straight out of the camera. So the first image here is the D500 at 35 mils. The next one here is the D90 at exactly the same focal length. Now I was using the Nikon 18 to 140mm lens on both of these cameras at exactly the same focal length. Here is where it becomes very noticeable because I've cropped all the way in just so you can see the Sony ZV-1. So this is the Nikon D500 image. Very sharp. If I zoom in, I can't see any noise at all. Now for the D90, it's a little bit flatter, but that's just because of the picture of profiles. Although both of them were set to the same thing, the picture profile is just slightly out. Look what happens when I zoom in. It's quite grainy, it's very soft, and this is the only difference that I've found between these cameras. If you're not going to crop in a lot, then you're going to be very satisfied with a camera like the D90. But if you have a habit of cropping into your images, then this is where a 12 megapixel camera is going to let you down because you've got less megapixels to work with. And this is, to me, the biggest difference in using an older camera or a camera with less megapixels, because it gives you less ability to crop in. Is that a concern to me? Not at all. For normal landscape and all that, I tried not to crop in too much because I tried to get what I see is what I get. So I tried to frame my image very carefully when I'm taking photos. And if you do that, a camera like the D90 is right up your alley. It's so cheap. You can pick these up any second-hand place for between about $300 and $400 with a lens. For your first camera, that is such a good bargain. Also, I find if you're getting into photography, now I'm just digressing a little bit here, but hear me out. If you're just getting into photography, a camera like this is great. Now you might say, but it's old technology. Why would I want something old technology? Well, that's exactly right. You're going to have to do the work yourself. Understand? The mirrorless cameras, they just about do all the work for you. I have a friend of mine who has the Nikon Z6 II. It does about everything for him because when you look through the viewfinder, it's what you see is what you get. So he can adjust his shutter speed, his aperture, his ISO, and what he's seeing on the viewfinder is the final image, is what he's going to get. On my D500, no, it's not what I'm going to get. I have to keep an eye on the meter. I have to make sure that I don't overexpose, I don't underexpose. All that is taken out of your hands when you have a mirrorless because what you see is what you get. On older cameras, no, you've got to do all the work. Your dynamic range is much narrower, so you've got to work a little bit harder. You've got to make sure that your settings are correct, and that's the best way to start off in photography because spending $300 or $400, you might say, yeah, but you know, I could put that money towards a new camera. You certainly could, but if you invest $300 to $400 into an older camera like that and get the feel of photography, understand your exposure triangle, ISO, shutter speed and your aperture, then when you upgrade to a better digital SLR or to a mirrorless, you're going to have such an easy task. At the end of the day, what I was looking for was a budget camera, and this camera, the D90, filled that slot perfectly. So I just wanted to share why I was letting go of my D90 and what my future plans were. Realistically, I'd like to find a D7100. Why the D7100 instead of another D90? I've bought the Nikon 70-300 AFP VR lens. This lens will work with the 7200. It won't work with the D90. So it means if I'm out and about, I could give the D7100, put the 70-300 on it and let my daughter have a play with it while I'm using the D500 with the Nikon 200 to 500mm lens, and we can have a great father and daughter wildlife walk around. She loves taking photos. So if you found value in this video, give me a thumbs up. Stay safe, enjoy photography, no matter what camera you use, and I'll see you next time.